Hi, I'm Mike McGee, the content manager for Course Report. We help people find and choose the best courses for their career goals. Today, I'm talking with Spencer Polans, a Flatiron School graduate who transitioned from mortgage lending to data science. After years as a loan officer, Spencer completed Flatiron's Data Science Bootcamp, mastering machine learning, Python, SQL, and Tableau. His Capstone project analyzed over 7.7 million US traffic accidents to identify risk factors for accident severity. We'll hear about his career pivot, bootcamp experience, and how he's applying his problem solving skills in data science. Welcome, Spencer.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So, gave a little preview of your story, but let's dive in. What's your pre bootcamp story? What made you decide to pursue a bootcamp?
Yeah, it's a bit of a multi-layered story. I've been in the financial services space since I graduated from college back in 2014, and a number of different roles. I settled into the mortgage space over the past 5.5 years, and I just wasn't getting the fulfillment in my career that I wanted. Just wasn't the where I want it to be. And I see where the world's going. I think we all do. We see the advent of AI and technology and all those improvements, and I felt like I wanted to be at the forefront of it. And this is not something that I decided to do rashly. I was thinking about it for a couple of years, and I decided to pull the trigger towards the end of last year, wrapped up everything at my job, and decided to pursue this full time.
So once you made that decision and as you were researching data science boot camps, why did you choose Flatiron School specifically?
There were multiple factors that went into the decision to do Flatiron. Obviously, there are plenty of different boot camps out there. I knew that I wanted to go into the data space, and what I was reading from Flatiron sounded good. And honestly, the big thing for me was I knew people who had completed the program. So I spoke to them. I asked them, what was it worth to you? Did you get out what you wanted to get out? And everybody that I spoke to spoke highly of it. And one of my friends who had done it, he said to me, he was able to jumpstart a career that he wouldn't have otherwise had. And that's my goal as well. So I felt like that there was a bit of an alignment. I liked that it was in New York, which is where I'm out of. Uh, so a little bit of everything kind of came to play.
So you joined Flatiron School. What was the typical week like for you as a student?
It was basically that I had certain number of information that I had, certain amount of information that I had to go through, certain number of assignments that I had to complete, and a larger project. The rate at which I would do that, it was up to me. As I was doing it full time, everything was kind of condensed. Everything was moving quickly. The assignments had to be done. You had to keep up, and there was no real time to fall behind, I guess. The entirety of the program was kind of in that structure up to the capstones, where, hey, have these readings, have these videos to watch, do as much as you can, learn, try to take in information. We had live classes with my cohort twice a week, and we all discussed what we're going through, things challenging, things that we liked, interesting, and kind of we're constantly bouncing ideas off of each other. And that was pretty much the structure Monday through.
So full-time experience, a regimented schedule, and you mentioned the capstone. When in the program, like how much time did you have for your capstone project?
The capstone was, we actually had 3 different capstones. So it wasn't, we didn't have just one. I'm going to share one that I did later shortly. And that came about at the end, towards the end of the program, it was really the last 5 weeks or so that I was working on Capstone, and the entirety of the program was about 4 months, from March to July. So it was exciting, it was fun, and I'm excited to share.
Well, perfect segue. Yeah, give us a demo of one of your capstones.
One of the capstones that I worked on was an analysis of United States traffic accidents. And I was exploring the frequency in which they occur, environmental risk factors, and if any infrastructural features had any impact on accident frequency or severity. The idea was I kind of went in, like I said, with these business questions in mind. Where do accidents most frequently occur? What environmental factors are linked to higher accident severity? What infrastructure features are associated with severe accidents? And the goal was to explore this data set and come up with actionable insights that the Department of Transportation can use to help with their policies and mitigate risk. So the data set itself, like you kind of mentioned this earlier, it had over 7.7 million entries into a rather large data set with 46 different columns. Something that I learned very early on in the boot camp was data is often not clean, and you have to work with it and massage it in order to make it analytically ready. So there were a number of null values in this data set. So for numeric values, I put median in, categorical, what's at the mode, and if there was a data specific item, maybe a street address, I would put in unknown. I also converted timestamp features to hour, part of day, day of the week, and month, which I use to kind of answer that when and where do these accidents occur. And I engineered a feature, weather type, good versus bad. We had what we would consider bad weather, but there were so many different types. There was light snow, heavy snow, light rain, heavy rain, right? So what of those did I consider bad, good or bad weather? I engineered a feature to kind of classify as good weather. So when and where do accidents most frequently occur? The general findings, a little unsurprising, is that most accidents occur during commuting hours during the weekend. Typically, people work 9 to 5 jobs. We see the most frequency in those commuting hours. So in the morning and when they're done with their job in the afternoon during the week. Something interesting, urban areas had the highest volume of accidents. And something else that I found was that there was a sharp decline in accidents during the middle of 2020. And I think that you all know what was going on in 2020. That was COVID. And I will show an interesting later to demonstrate this. So what environmental factors are linked to higher accident severity? I alluded to what I did in the data set earlier, kind of classifying good or bad weather, in this case, adverse or clear. And the finding was in general that there is a slight increase in severity during adverse conditions, but overall the environment had a low level of impact. And then what infrastructures are associated with severe accidents? Found that the average severity, and this was one of the calculators that I was using, the data set classified severity on a scale of 1 to 4, with 1 being the least severe and 4 being the most severe. So as we see from this visual right here, accident severity was slightly higher when, in this case, I selected functions when those were present. Now, one thing that I did point out on the slide, and I did point out when I was presenting this, when I completed it, was that the data set only had these as binary features. So was a stop sign there, was a traffic light there, was a junction there, yes or no. That tells us some information, but we lose the context. We don't know exactly how it was set up. So there's a place where data can be limiting and not give the full picture. So again, key findings: accidents peak during rush hour, poor weather slightly increases the severity of accidents, and some infrastructural features like junctions can lead to higher severity. Accidents are more common during the northeast, southeast, and far western parts of the country like California. and accidents dropped in 2020 due to COVID-19. So some of the business recommendations that I came up with was we identified these high volume periods during community hours. So potentially to employ additional law enforcement in those areas to help with difficult traffic areas. Might be difficult, but it's something that could certainly mitigate some level of risk. Um, and then everywhere we have local weather authorities, and we get the hurricane warning or snow warning or whatever, and so I maybe work with them to help implement that alert system for to make sure that drivers are aware of what's going on and to maybe keep them off the roads. And then, like I said, junctions, intersections that have frequent or significant accidents, uh, maybe there's something wrong structurally with them. So places where we might be lacking for safety features, you could do something low cost, like have better signage, lane markers, turn signals, or there could be a more expensive, more extensive type of option in terms of action they do like intersections or whatever it is itself. So here's my dashboard. Everything here is interactive. For example, when and where do accidents most frequently occur? You can go over here and look at this dashboard. So some of these visuals were shown in the slide deck, some were not. Here is our count of accidents. The blue meaning there's a higher count. The red, orangey colors, less occurrences. So this is done by the hour of the day. And again, those times we see the increase. And again, during the week, much higher than on the weekends. And this is, we can again see a little breakdown here showing that, hey, during those commuting hours during the week, we have a much higher number of accidents. So that was this. Now I spoke a little bit about where do they occur. And so I created a heat map to kind of show where are these accidents most heavily focused. And we see in big urban areas, the Northeast, Southeast, and California. Something that I found interesting was I plotted the top 10 cities by accident count. And you can see Miami, Houston, LA, et cetera, et cetera. And we see this massive cluster down here in the Northeast. And I'm from New York City. So I'm like, where is New York City here? And this is a good lesson about data that I learned from doing this project. Our preconceived notions about what data should be is not always right. The data is set up in a way that the person who collected it intended it to be set up that way. So in this case, what I found was that rather than being specifically in New York City, it was broken down by the boroughs. So we had the Bronx, we had Brooklyn, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I was able to play around in my notebook when I was coding. And if I were to combine all of those, New York City would fall to the top 5. This is an interesting visual. This is a number of accidents over time. And this visual is kind of where I saw or came up with that conclusion that, hey, we have this sharp drop during COVID-19. And we see it happening in 2020, right around here. And, I like the interactive features that Tableau can do. So if I wanted to look at a specific state, my lovely home state of New Jersey, we can see again, we have that large drop there. So that was interesting across the board. So which environmental factors are linked to higher accident rates? We could look at precipitation, we could look at wind speed, whatever metric I select, we could see based on the severity. So this was another fun and interactive visual that I made. And I spoke about this a little bit in my slide deck. We're talking about accidents and the weather. So we're looking at this again. The severity was scored on a scale of 1 to 4. And I looked at what percentage of accidents, level 4 accidents, by weather type. I mean, we have a slightly higher amount in adverse weather, But I think that overall, the data does not capture everything. It doesn't capture, is someone sleep deprived? Are they drinking and driving? Are there distractions behind the wheel? Are they on the phone? So while we have all of this great information, we don't always get the entirety of the context. And then lastly, which infrastructural features are associated with higher accident severity? So traffic signals, it's great. Uh, if it's not there, we have higher accident severity. That makes sense, right? Because they're there designed to be a safety feature. Now, if I were to go to junctions, like I said, junctions are often confusing. And I know I've almost gotten into accidents as a kid. So makes sense to me that there's a higher level of accident severity when junctions are present. And, again, I liked being able to let somebody interact with this and kind of explore the data by themselves. And that's kind of the fun of building out these dashboards is, you start to see the visuals and it helps you draw conclusions. And for me, the creation of dashboard data visualization is one of the more enjoyable things that I learned to use. So that's a little bit of my demo from my US accidents analysis.
That's fascinating, Spencer. I really enjoyed you giving that demo, walking through the presentation and the Tableau dashboard, listening as you presented your findings. It makes sense to me, but I find it even more powerful that data can, while it is shaped by humans and like you mentioned in your presentation, there's subjectivity that goes into how data is collected and why. But even seeing, a high level that more accidents happen during the weekdays and that they happen, kind of morning and evening, like around rush hour times when people are commuting to and from work, it's still really cool to see data kind of confirm, those assumptions that we have. I'm sure it was a fascinating experience as you went through building this. You just showed a Tableau dashboard. Did you use any technologies while developing this that were like outside of the Flatiron School curriculum?
Uh, Not on this specific project, but I certainly had to go outside on some of the other work that I did. One was training a NLP model to summarize text conversations. And for that one, uh, I had to use Google Cloud just because my local computing resources were so limited. And that's not something that Flatiron or I would think a lot of programs would teach. But there are all these great services out there. Having GPU access for me literally changed my project overnight. Um, Another one of my projects, I did analysis of New York City real estate, and I pulled in different APIs, different data, and so long answer to your question is yes. You're constantly thinking outside the box and trying to come up with creative solutions. And that's part of the beauty of data science is that, hey, there's a problem, you have a question, we have data, let's solve it. And maybe the data set that you're working on doesn't have everything that you need. And I alluded to in my Tableau presentation, hey, we're missing some context here. Wouldn't that be great to have more context? And what you find is that sometimes you go in with these assumptions. Those assumptions are not always right. So, data is really cool. It's eye opening. And I really enjoyed what I.
What was your approach like when planning this analysis of US traffic accidents? What was your approach planning the project? How much help did you get from Flatiron School instructors or mentors while building this project?
I'm one of those people that I plan things out. So in my previous job, Monday morning, I'd say, hey, these are the things that I need to get done this week. And I took the same approach to this project and pretty much any project that I've worked on, kind of setting realistic goals to set myself up for success. Um, and so that was kind of what I did. I said, hey, I want to have my exploratory data analysis done, you know, by Tuesday, for example. I want to start building out visuals by a certain date, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There was definitely strict planning involved. I am a goal-oriented person, so if I set a goal, I meet it, and that works for me. My instructor was great. I can't speak highly enough of her. If there was a question, I might not get her right away, but I would always get a detailed, informed answer. And when you're going through these projects and you're experimenting with things that you may not have a lot of experience with, having that resource was invaluable. My cohort was also really great. We all work together. We're working independently, but we're trying to help each other to elevate each other.
The camaraderie of the cohort, even as you said, working independently, just knowing that others are working just as hard, just as passionately about their capstones can provide that motivation, even if you're not all working together on one thing. So, speaking of kind of going through that experience, you're analyzing these enormous data sets, you're trying to create a coherent picture of something that's massive in its scale. Were there any roadblocks you faced while you were working on this analysis, and anything that surprised you while you were, collecting and going through the data?
In terms of roadblocks, what I found is that it's rarely just a straight line to success. There is a level of experimenting and exploration that needs to be done. So I get this massive data set, 7.7 million entries, 46 different data points. Where do you start with that? It's you gotta kind of pick and choose. And initially I was I didn't really want to look at infrastructural impacts. I was exploring elsewhere. And as I was exploring, there were just, I was creating visuals. There were some things that I didn't like. I didn't feel like I was getting statistical significance that I was looking for. I was running statistical tests to make sure that, hey, do I have real statistical significance between weather and accident severity? And, if I wasn't seeing that, then there's no real, I'm not presenting anything, no value. So that certainly, happens a number of times. And, data itself, you see stuff that surprises you. And every single data set that I worked with, I felt like I learned something every single time. Specifically in this, I felt like I was almost done at this point, and I had plotted my visuals, and it looked so wrong to me. I'm like, why is this looking so wrong? And so I had to go back, I had to refilter my data and be basically recreate part of the work that I had already done. So there's certainly trial and error. There's certainly learning as you go and taking the lessons and applying them.
Speaking of learning as you go, experimenting, we'll pivot to post Flatiron and your next step in your career. What has the job search been like so far? Do you have a dream job in mind? Also, have you been able to talk about this project? Any, job interviews or just job conversations so far?
In terms of the job search itself, nobody likes looking for a job. Not different. But I will say that Flatiron has provided me with excellent resources. Their career services have been great. Uh, I came out of 10 years in the financial services space, and you start applying to jobs. Guess what? Tech is a different space. The information that they're looking for is completely different. So they were great in helping me write a new resume. So basically, I have to start from scratch. In terms of a dream job, I'm not sure I have a dream job. The beauty of data is that it's needed everywhere. It could be needed in financial services. It could be needed in sports. It could be needed in fashion. It could be needed in client for like client facing. I'm certainly open to what's out there because I feel like that things happen for a reason. I have this strong background in mortgage lending and real estate and finance, so I would think that maybe that's where my fit would be. But you never know. I was talking to somebody the other day. He completed a boot camp and he's working at L'Oreal. So it's whatever it, life throws at me. I'm excited to talk some more. I did forget to answer one part of your question.
Oh, go for it. Go for
Spoken about
Sure.
my projects and interviews? And yes, is the answer. And all of these employers, as a boot camp graduate in general, you're coming into the field, I'll say green. And, these projects that I worked on, this is my foundation. So this is where I've learned my lessons in data. So I've spoken specifically about the traffic accident project, but I've also spoken to what did I learn from it? What lessons can I take away from it that I can apply moving forward to XYZ company?
As you mentioned, while you're making this major career and learning pivot, from finance into the tech space, having these capstone projects, like what you've actually used your learning and how you've applied it, is a great leg up and compared to others that haven't had that boot camp experience and actual real project experience. So it's great to have that foundation as you transition. Uh, Thinking about your Flatiron School experience, if someone came up to you and was considering starting Flatiron School like you were when you were thinking about your career pivot, what advice would you give to them just starting Flatiron School?
You have to be serious about what you're doing. You have to be ready to grind every single day because it's called a boot camp for a reason. You're in the trenches. You're doing this every single day, and it really does become your life. Which for some people that may not be what they're looking for, and it's certainly not easy. So my advice would be, make sure that this is what you want to do. Um, Make sure that you're ready to grind, and if you are, I think it'll be very rewarding.
Excellent advice, realistic advice. Appreciate that. So I know you just graduated and haven't had too much time post Flatiron School, so this may be hard to say definitively. But looking back on your recent boot camp experience, was Flatiron School worth it for you?
I think so. I am, again, like you said, I'm not too far removed from finishing my program, and I just recently, based on your quotes, hopped into the job search, and um, I think that what I've learned, or what Flatiron may reinforced for me, that hey, did you make the right decision? And taking a leap of faith. I was in a decent career, in images. I wasn't getting the fulfillment that I wanted out of it, and I think that I'm now equipped with the tools that I need to be successful and jumpstart that I'm looking for. So I think yes, but I think that you need to be, if you are going to do Flatiron or any boot camp, make sure that this is what you want to do, because it is, better or for worse, all consuming. It's all day, every day. It's, you go to sleep thinking about it. I remember, there were multiple times that I woke up in the middle of the night. I left. I was running a model overnight, and I was like, I wonder how it's doing. So I got up at like 3 a.m. I was coding. So it's it's very cool, the stuff that you learned. I want to say that my instructors were both. I had two instructors over the course of my boot camp that taught different areas of the data science space. They were both great. The collaborative nature of the cohort was also phenomenal. So overall, I think for me it was worth it, and for anybody that's thinking about doing it, just be ready to work because that's what a boot camp is. You know, all good things come with hard work.
Couldn't agree more, Spencer. Thank you so much for these detailed and insightful answers. Just hearing you speak about your experience and what you're working on, and now you're going to sleep thinking about models and data science in your brain. So, the job will definitely come, but just your transformation and your investment in yourself is a major win too. Thank you so much, Spencer, for your time today. Find out more and read Flatiron School reviews on Course Report. This article was produced by the Course Report team in partnership with Flatiron School.